All right, so here we go with part numero dos of chapter 15 video lecture. We are now focusing on the Counter Reformation. So the Protestants are doing their thing. They're increasing their popularity, especially throughout Northern Europe. Um, England and Germany and other countries have switched from Catholic to Protestant. So what is the church going to do about it? And that's what we call the Counter-Reformation or the Catholic Reformation. It's the actions that the Catholic Church takes in order to stop or prevent the spread of the Protestant movements, right? The Protestant Reformation. So sometimes we call it Catholic, sometimes we call it counter. It means the same thing. Um, and here we see the Council of Trent. It's this big meeting of all the church leaders, right? The Pope calls all the bishops from all over Europe to come into Rome, and they sit for 17 years and they discuss what are they going to do about Protestant Reformation, right? So they're going to adopt new policies, they're going to create new ideas, and they're going to change their practices, right? So the Council of Trent is that the big meeting of the church leaders, and they're going to go ahead and start creating some of the changes in order to within the Catholic Church in order to increase the church's standing. So they are going to reform its doctrine. So what are some of the things that they do? Is that they are going to they're going to, what are they going to do? All right. One thing they're going to do is that they're going to make sure that Catholic priests are educated, because for a while you don't have to be educated to be a priest, which is crazy. Because how are they going to read the Bible? What else? They agree that selling of indulgences, that's a bad thing, so they cancel it. They say that you need to have faith and do good works in order to achieve salvation. So you can't just be faithful, you can't just be nice, you have to be both in order to achieve salvation. They change a few other things, like they keep writing the Bible in Latin. They refuse to change that. They keep saying the Pope is the supreme leader of the faith. They refuse to change that. Like I mentioned before, they banned indulgences. But that's about it. And they don't believe in predestination either. So again, these are some of the internal changes within the church as a response or as a reaction to the increasing popularity of the Protestant Reformation. Now, the next thing they do is that they create the Inquisition. Now, the Inquisition existed before, even back in medieval times, in the early the post-classical era. But here we see it kind of come back to life, and it becomes even greater than before. Meaning it had more authority than ever before. And the Inquisition was a legal body. It was like a court. It had lawyers, it had judges, it had investigators, and basically they looked for anyone who was a heretic. Now, the definition of heretic, of course, is someone who is a non-believer, but now that also includes anyone who's not Catholic, including Protestants, Anglicans, Calvinists, Lutherans, right? So they start torturing people. That becomes their standard procedure. And once the people who are tortured, admit to their crimes of being a heretic, then they're put to death. And if they don't admit it, then they'll just be tortured until they die. Right? Now we see this a lot. Like the main place where we see this, the Spanish Inquisition, um, and the main place we see it in Spain, and it's going to be focusing on targeting of Jews and Muslims, right? Because they want to kick out all the Jews and Muslims. They want to make sure everyone in Spain is Catholic. So we see that this institution gains more power to carry on their investigation as a response, as a reaction to the Protestant Reformation. We also see the formation of a new group called the Jesuits. And the Jesuits, they're a missionary order, they're a monastic order, so it's a group of monks. They're known, their nickname is known as the Society or the Friends of Jesus, right? And what they're going to do, they're going to be created during the Council of Trent, and their mission is to do anything and everything that the Pope asks of them, right? And to spread the Catholic teaching, to spread the Catholic faith. So whatever the Pope asks them, so they're going to be super disciplined, super loyal, and whatever the church asks, they will do. So these Jesuits, they're going to sail with Columbus. They're going to sail with the Portuguese explorers. They're going to sail and travel to other faraway places, and they're going to be responsible for converting the people that they meet, whether it's Native Americans or people in Africa or people in Asia. They're also going to travel throughout Europe, right, spreading the Catholic faith into Protestant areas, right? One of the ways that they do this is through education. They're going to create schools and universities, right, all over the world to teach, kind of like to teach about the faith through education. And even nowadays, we still see the impact of the Jesuits because a lot of private Catholic schools are run by Jesuits, right? If you go down 8th Street towards, Miccosukee, you're going to pass by a school called Belen Jesuit. And it is a private Catholic school, and it is run by Jesuit monks. So even to this day, we still see the Jesuits. So these Jesuits, again, super religious, super loyal, super, strict, and they're going to help spread Christianity, Catholic Christianity, throughout the world. All right, they're going to be responsible for that. So we see the Protestants on one side, we see the Catholics on the other side, and now we're going to see war break out between these. Now, it's important to note that these, even though they're called the wars of religion, it wasn't just religion. It wasn't just Protestants versus Catholics. It also had to do with political. Like people wanted to have more power or more land, as most wars tend to be. So we see a big civil war take place in France because France is almost like divided 50-50. Southern France is like mainly Catholic, and northern France is mainly Protestant, primarily Calvinist, and they're gonna fight each other for power, right? And so it's a kind of long civil war, it lasted about 50 years, and it was completely destructive. And the end result is that the king of France says, "Look, we're going to pass this law. It's called the Edict of Nantes, and it says that the Huguenots are the French Protestants, that they get to keep their religion. You can't force them to convert. You can't punish them for not being Catholic. But that the official religion of France, the kingdom, is going to be Catholic. So even though officially France is Catholic, they have some toleration to non-Catholics, right? So this is kind of like the first step to like religious freedom, but it only came after 50 years of in war. So that's in France. In Germany, well, we'll get to Germany next. Another big war of religion, which really wasn't about religion, was Spain and England. So England converts to Anglicanism, and Spain says you can't do that, and then England says yes we can do whatever we want. So Spain says all right, we're going to send our army to stop you, and they send this massive ship. It's called the this fleet, I should say. It's called the Spanish Armada, right? Hundreds and hundreds of ships, and they sail up to England to invade England. And this is at the time that England was being ruled by Queen Elizabeth I. And the plan was that they're going to conquer England and force England to convert back to Catholicism, along with Spain controlling England. And So the Spanish go up, sail up there, and it just so happens they run into this big storm, kind of like how the Mongols fleet got hit by the divine wind in, trying to invade Japan. Well, the Spanish Armada also gets hit by this bad weather, and a whole bunch of their ships sink. I mean, and then whatever survived is defeated by the English. So this is another example of those religious wars. But the main war of religion is the 30 Years' War. And the 30 Years' War is going to be focused right here in the central part of Europe in what we call the Holy Roman Empire. And if you notice that the Holy Roman Empire, it's divided, right? There's Catholic parts, there's Protestant parts, right? So they're going to be the most divided, right? They're going to be the most divided, and so they're going to have a big war as well. And other countries are going to jump in because that's what countries like to do. They jump into wars, have nothing to do with them. But it's absolutely destructive. And not only is it destructive that soldiers are killing soldiers, but they're destroying fields, they're destroying food supplies. So then we have famine, we have disease, right? People are starving, and all of this mainly takes place in the Holy Roman Empire. And after this war finally ends, it's a treaty called the Treaty of Westphalia. After the war finally comes to an end, the end result is that the Holy Roman Empire decides that every little like kingdom or principality or every little region, because remember the Holy Roman Empire was completely decentralized, so every little region gets to choose what religion they practice. No one can force you. So if you lived in a region where the king says, all right, or the prince says, the German prince says, we're going to be Protestant, then you get to be Protestant. If you don't like living under the Protestant king or Protestant prince, then you have to move somewhere else, right, where they practice something else. So 30 Years' War, completely destructive, completely violent, and it will lead to a lot of death and violence, as you see here, and it will definitely weaken the Holy Roman Empire even further. So we're going to see that while the Holy Roman Empire is involved in this like bloody, massive civil war, at the same time, the Dutch, the French, the English, the Spanish, the Portuguese, they're going to launch expeditions. They're going to launch explorations. They're going to set up colonies around the world, while Germany and the Holy Roman Empire will not be doing any of those. So the end result of all these wars is that Europe gets divided. We have the more Protestant Northern Europe and the more Catholic Southern Europe. And even though it's crazy to think about it, but all these wars led to some levels of religious tolerance, right? And remember, we're talking about religious tolerance between Christians, because whether you're Protestant or Catholic, you're a Christian, right? So completely crazy. Now, on a sidetrack here of these religious wars, is we see an increase levels of witch hunts, of witch trials. So what happens is that all this like violence and war and conflict and suspicion, right? Because you don't really know if your neighbor is a Catholic or a Protestant, right? It's all like mysterious. So people start spreading rumors and people start accusing each other. So what tends to happen is that people who are outcasts of society, people who don't have friends or family, like older widowed women, they tend to be targeted first, right? And they're accused of being witches. And whether or not they're witches or not, or they practice magic or not, does not matter. So we see an increase of witch hunts during this time, right? As part of that big confusion and hysteria and chaos, right? Caused by these wars of religion. At the same time, there's going to be an increase of anti Semitism because the Jews living in Europe, of course, are always going to be the minority group and therefore they're easiest to blame. So if anything goes wrong in your town, it's the Jews' fault. And they often get punished completely unfairly for it. All right, so that's it for part two. We'll see you next part when we talk about new monarchs. How interesting. Can't wait.